Let's welcome in lawyer Nainesh Kotak, who joins us now here on Global News Radio 640 Toronto. Nainesh, good afternoon. Appreciate you joining us.
Good afternoon, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Okay, you wanted to speak this afternoon on this lack of a vaccine certificate and talk to us a bit about the effect that's having on businesses, if you could.
Right. So, we seem to be sort of behind the eight ball here in Ontario. And obviously the idea is to catch up now with a proposal, but we see other provinces and Quebec and BC sort of listen to the business community at the outset and come up with programs to ensure that there are vaccine certificates for certain non-essential businesses and a way of proving the vaccine. Reality is, we've been through enough lockdown. I think the business community, you look at the Toronto Board of Trade, you look at the restaurant associations, really most businesses cannot handle another lockdown. You'll see a tremendous amount of closures that could happen with respect to gyms and restaurants. So there was a fair bit of pressure put on the provincial government. I know Premier Ford initially was hesitant, and his view was, look, we're going to really divide society here. But the reality is, in Ontario, we've got over 80% of the eligible population has the first vaccine and getting close to 70 or so has the second. There are also public opinion polls where the majority, in fact, of Canadians are actually requesting that there be some sort of vaccination certificate program. So I think the Premier and his office listen to that and certainly don't want to be blamed for another lockdown. There are many issues for businesses, places of employment, where look, even in their hiring processes, where it would be so simple if there was an easy way to just approve the vaccine in a way that cannot be duplicated through any sort of fraudulent means. So I think that's what we are seeing. We don't know, of course, what the particulars of this. The non-essential businesses that are going to be affected by this. But if we look at examples from Quebec, we may be dealing with gyms and restaurants or places where, a large amount of people would potentially gather indoors. So I do see this as, I think, a positive thing for the business community. I do understand there's some people who will feel that the freedoms are being taken away, but, we're in very different times, I should say. You go back a year and a half, no one could imagine we'd be wearing masks in malls or that places of employment would require their employees, for example, to wear masks or take their temperatures. So there's certain freedoms that were given up, over the course of this pandemic, and I think they'll be here to stay for quite some time.
Okay, but this vaccine certificate, this is seen as crucial when it comes for business, when it comes to remaining open and avoiding another lockdown, trying to control spread, particularly, I would think, in indoor environments. And we're seeing, reports of that more and more here during this fourth wave of businesses and, breakouts at certain restaurants and nightclubs and such.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. This is, the idea is to certainly avoid further lockdowns and business loss. The proof's sort of in the pudding. In fact, if you look, given the percentage of people who are vaccinated, over 80 eligible with the first, over 70 with the second, and you look at hospitalization, the vast majority are unvaccinated people. So really, the proof is in the pudding. And I think the general public has sort of been fed up of lockdowns, understandably so is business. And I think this is our best hope. It's not an ideal situation to sort of divide people. I get that. It's not ideal, but I think it really is, our sort of last hope with this. And, to avoid further lockdowns is let's have vaccination certificates. And we've seen many cities throughout the world are in fact doing this. We saw this during the playoffs when the Montreal Canadiens had the home games. I think that they allowed 2,500, but had to be fully vaccinated. We see this happening in other sporting type of scenarios. So, the question is, how far do you take it? One concern I have, is simply the enforcement of it. Let's say, a shopping mall, for example. Are they going to have to screen people, every single person who enters that shopping mall, or will it be up to the individual stores? And keep in mind, children under 12 and under simply cannot be vaccinated. So this shouldn't apply to them. And what if their parents are walking with children, trying to go into a mall? So there are, of course, going to be logistical nightmares that are going to be part and parcel of all this. but they'll just have to be worked out. And if we didn't do this, if we didn't do these official vaccination certificates, if we left up to the business community to police itself, and there could be some disparity, some unfairness between various businesses, or the regions themselves would have done it on their own. Ideally, the federal government probably should have done something, but I think this is our next best thing. It's for the provinces to sort of take control here.
Let me ask you before we run out of time, what is it you, the business community, is looking for from the government in the next day or two with this announcement? Clarity, obviously, when it comes to some of the matters you just mentioned there, Nainesh, but also looking for logistics such as, is this going to be a QR code? Is this something on a phone that people will scan before they go to a mall, an individual store, into a restaurant for indoor dining, that sort of thing?
Well, the indication that we're hearing from sort of insiders in the media is that, yes, it would be a QR code. And in fact, that's what Quebec and BC have proposed. The initial month or so, while this is going in the works, we would probably use our emailed version of our second vaccine certificate that we got from where a drugstore or whatever healthcare facility we obtained that from. But that will slowly emerge into carrying on a QR code. And for those who don't have smartphones, probably a printout. They obviously need something that cannot be hacked, something that is going to be secure for the users and private enough as well.
All right. Nainesh, really appreciate the conversation as always, and thanks so much for the time this afternoon.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
You as well. There's lawyer Nainesh Kotak with us.